Despite BB-9E having been out since early 2020, most players still don't seem to know what he does, why he does it, and how to deal with him. I'll be explaining everything you'll ever want or need to know about him, going from the basics of his role to base stats, primary weapon, passives, abilities, strategy, and finally star cards in that order. Timestamps are on screen right now. Just a fair warning ahead of time. Essays and reading from a script are not things I usually do, and a lot of my lines in this might be a little off. I would also like to issue an eye strain / epilepsy warning. There's a lot of bright lights in a lot of dark rooms with a lot of smoke in this game, and it starts tiring you out, even if you're not epileptic. If you are epileptic and you do watch this video, click away if you start feeling unwell at any point. If you click away from the video and you still feel unwell after a little while, consult a doctor. If any of the information in this video is incorrect, there will be a pinned comment. Leave a reply under there with the timestamp and what I said and what the correct thing was, and I'll update it in that comment. If you want to make a joke comment or leave some feedback, just do it in the regular comment section. Just so I can filter out the actual, incorrect information and correct it. BB-9E is a support hero with a hint of healer, focusing on helping his team get into good positions by preventing them from getting pressured. BB-9E's toolkit includes a stun, a recharge command, a blast command, a push, a smokescreen, a scanner, passive healing, a small hurt box, 2 dash dodges, and a doubled objective capture rate, which is unique to him. His downsides include terrible range, little to no damage output, awful health, no melee attacks, less invincibility on his dodges than other villains for some reason, lackluster speed for his class, and no great escape tools. As for health, BB-9E stands bottom of the barrel at a pathetic 600 health, but a fairly respectable maximum regeneration of 250. He can increase his maximum regen to a fantastic 350 if the star card Full Reconstruction is equipped. BB-9E has 2 dash dodges, which is faster than a roll, although unlike with other dodges, the invincibility takes a split second to kick in. This means you may get hit by a lightsaber strike or force ability at the start of a dodge when you should have been able to avoid it. As for speed, BB-9E is slightly slower than the average lightsaber hero. This lets him chase blaster heroes, but leaves him pretty much helpless against saber users chasing him. I would also like to note that BB-9E has an exceptionally small frame at 0.6 meters or less than 2 feet, which makes him hard to hit and fairly hard to spot in the corner of your eye. More on that in a bit. BB-9E's primary weapon is the shock prod. Its characteristics are on the surface quite similar to Palpatine's lightning, having stamina instead of the usual heat and locking onto enemies if they are in range. The main difference is that the shock prod isn't nearly as magnetized to walls. It deals 24 damage at a rate of 3 hits per second, with the range displayed in an arc in front of you. It hits one enemy at a time, and your current target will be outlined in white. By equipping the Linked Systems star card, you can increase the damage to 32 after successfully stunning enemies 32 times without dying. Speaking of stunning enemies, let's talk about the shock prod's most confusing feature by far, the stun. When BB-9E spawns, a yellow circle will appear around his crosshair. The first time you deal damage to a trooper, a reinforcement, or hero while you have this circle on your crosshair, it will apply the shock effect for a little over a second, stunning them. It won't interrupt blaster fire quite as much though. The stun will completely halt the victim's movement and effectively unplug their controller until it's over, interrupting lightsaber swings, as well as abilities of any kind, and the charging of alt fires like Leia's homing shot. After a successful stun, the yellow circle disappears, and your attacks will no longer stun. After a few seconds, the yellow circle will come back, and your next attack will stun again. Blocking BB-9E will not take away his circle, and it only enables him to roll behind you and stun you from there. Seeing as the shock prod has no startup time, he can act out of a dodge much quicker than any lightsaber hero would be able to. Alternatively, BB-9E could keep hitting your block, as the shock prod actually drains stamina pretty fast if you try to deflect it, especially for heroes that don't have much of it to spare. As a side note, this is also how Count Dooku's initiative works. As a second side note, Shock Prod won't stun enemies recently hit by Phasma's First Order Sentry Droid's Shock Attack or Palpatine's Electrocute ability, and the other way around. BB-9E has 3 passive abilities, which makes him the only villain with multiple passives and ties him with BB-8. Let's tackle them only slightly out of order, starting with Health on Elimination. Health on Elimination heals you for 20 health upon defeating an enemy. Defeating a hero will instead net you 100 health. The health gain can heal you higher than your maximum regeneration allows. This passive is standard for heroes to encourage and reward aggressive play. Unfortunately, due to his low offensive power, BB-9E struggles to deal more damage than he takes. Still, while BB-9E tends to be starved for healing, his fellow villains definitely won't be. BB-9E's third passive, Bacta Support, will provide teammates with constant bursts of free health once every 1.8 seconds in a range of 7 meters. While it doesn't heal you, it does allow you to get other villains with bad regeneration back to full health. If the star card Potent Bacta is equipped, Bacta Support will instead heal once every 3.8 seconds in a range of 9.5 meters. I'll save the rant on this one for the star card section. Public service announcement: hug your BB-9E when no enemies are around. Seriously. BB-9E's second passive, Technical Support, as I said we're a bit out of order here, is where that hilariously small height finally comes into play. Technical Support doubles the rate at which you capture, hack, arm and disarm objectives. And even if it didn't, BB-9E would still be the evil king of capture points. BB-9E is so small and so hard to spot indoors, he can easily sneak from cover to cover and get to the objective unseen. This is obviously not applicable in Heroes vs. Villains, but it can and will save games of Galactic Assault if you know what you're doing. This is a BB-8 clip, but same thing. Not really a passive, but BB-9E also has a bright red flashlight replacing his melee. Unlike the Assault class, you cannot spot enemies with it. Because it tends to give away your position, I can only recommend flicking it on when using the Alarm taunt, which is admittedly a completely valid competitive use. Seeing as we were talking about sneaking into capture points just now, BB-9E has yet another tool for that: Smokescreen. Smokescreen is largely identical to BB-8's Resistance Backing, having an active time of 12 seconds and a cooldown of 18 seconds. It has an effective range of 30 meters, which is massive compared to BB-8's 20 meters. Like BB-9E's Resistance Backing, Smokescreen will cause you to show up as a trooper on the minimap until the ability ends. Unlike with BB-8's Resistance Backing, you may press the ability button again to cancel it early, which means its cooldown will start earlier and thus finish faster. Smokescreen's main feature is showing you a bright red silhouette of all nearby enemies while it's active. Additionally, it will also tell you how many enemies are in range on the icon of the ability itself, even when not in use. This basically makes it impossible for anyone to sneak up on you and invalidates checking your corners while it's not displaying a number. Finally, you can equip the star card I See You to extend the reveal duration by 4 seconds, occasionally letting you get away with cancelling the ability even earlier. All of these qualities already make this ability a free intel monopoly, but it gets better. The ability also constantly emits small smoke clouds. The smoke clouds are fairly transparent and barely hide you unless you're in a very dark room like the Starkiller base prison area, but if you keep your flashlight and shock prop turned off, you're basically invisible. The clouds are fairly small and only last for around 3 seconds, but the ability spews out so many they can cover a decent area if you're on the move. If you have the star card Hearty Exhaust equipped, the width of the smoke clouds is increased, as seen in the example here. Contrary to popular belief, Hearty Exhaust will not let you see enemies from farther away. Something a lot of players aren't aware of is that lightsaber users cannot lunge at enemies standing in smoke or when they are in smoke themselves. Use it while backing up to disorient overconfident swing spammers. I would advise against relying on it though. This is Battlefront 2 after all, and just because it should work doesn't mean it always will. BB-9E is hard to see, and Smokescreen makes it nearly impossible to not be seen by him. Fantastic ability, gets a chef's kiss from me. If you liked Smokescreen's dual functionality, you're gonna love this. Shock Spin has an active time of 8 seconds and a cooldown of 25 seconds, which is the same as BB-8's Cable Spin. If you have the star card Spin Me Round equipped, this cooldown will go up to 28 seconds. Shock Spin is simultaneously a Force Push, a Disruptor, and a Cable Spin, so I'll explain it in parts. We'll start with the Force Push. BB-9E starts the move with a high-pitched whirring sound, at which point his movement speed is reduced and he loses the ability to sprint, dodge, jump, or use his primary weapon. Shock Spin will not interrupt your other abilities, nor will it stop you from activating them. After the whirring sound, BB-9E will deal 90 damage to anyone within a 5-meter radius displayed by the white ring closest to BB-9E. On the icon of the ability itself, the number of enemies standing in range of this attack is displayed. Enemies hit by this will be knocked back a very inconvenient distance. Not far enough to be an environmental kill option, but too far to follow up into the following hits of the attack. With the star card Spin Me Round equipped, it will push them 4 meters further at the cost of a slightly longer cooldown. An interesting gimmick with this initial burst of damage is that missing it but keeping the ability active will create a brief window where enemies entering your range will still be hit by the initial 90 damage. I've got this footage to illustrate it. The initial burst has knockback, which in arcade will instantly kill an AI. You can see here in the footage, enemies are still getting knocked back and thus insta-killed well after BB-9E has finished spinning up. Shock Spin can also push saber-wielding enemies after having already hit their block. While that's happening, there's also a 15-meter ring further away from BB-9E that disappears when the startup is over. This part of the attack is functionally a worse version of the officer's Disruption star card. It disables blasters and grenades all the same, but has a smaller blast radius. After all of that, the Cable Spin part of the move begins. From this point on, the move deals 30 damage every second in a radius of 5 meters. This makes it notably less powerful than BB-9E's primary weapon, the Shock Prod. It no longer pushes off or disables past this point and can be cancelled anytime now. With the star card Faster Faster equipped, its damage is increased to 60 damage every second if the attack at any point deals damage to 2 or more different enemies. Even when heavily upgraded, Shock Spin doesn't possess the damage output necessary to sweep hallways like BB-9E's light side colleague BB-8, nor can it contest with swing spamming from any Saber hero. It does drain blocking stamina quite nicely, although this is very situational as most heroes will just lower their block to strike you. Overall, a solid ability that acts as a Swiss Army knife in BB-9E's kit, although I'd recommend cancelling it early a majority of the time to avoid making yourself an easy target. Well, at least this one isn't too confusing. Charge Up has a duration of 5 seconds and a cooldown of 15 seconds. If the star card Swift Power is equipped, the cooldown will be shortened to 10 seconds. Unlike BB-9E's other abilities, Charge Up cannot be cancelled. Charge Up gives BB-9E unlimited shock prod power until the end of the ability. During this time, the cooldowns of nearby allies go by twice as fast and their blasters are put in the cooling success state. To put this into perspective better, Kylo's Pole has a cooldown of 20 seconds, but with Charge Up, 5 of those seconds go by twice as fast, which makes the new cooldown 15 seconds. As a rule of thumb, Charge Up reduces all active cooldowns by up to 5 seconds. While it won't matter much, Charge Up will not work on an ally affected by disruption, and they will not receive the cooldown or cooling boosts. Charge Up has a radius of 20 meters and shows you how many allies are close enough to be affected whenever it's off cooldown. If the star card Supercharged is equipped, the range is increased to 27 meters. Charge Up did not work properly when BB-9E was released and was fixed in the Scarab update on April 29, 2020. If you see someone talk about Charge Up not boosting cooldowns, that's why. Overall, Charge Up has a short cooldown and there's never a bad time to use it, so I'd recommend just pressing it whenever there's a teammate nearby to make the most of it. The strategy section I'll split into 3 subsections: playing as, being with, and fighting against BB-9E. I won't be giving you a full step-by-step game plan, but I will be teaching you a few tricks. While playing as BB-9E, it's best to ditch all your knowledge of lightsaber and blaster combat, cause it won't help you here. BB-9E tends to get completely steamrolled in a fight due to his bottom of the barrel damage output and lack of a block, so hide behind your team whenever possible. The Shock Prod is barely a primary weapon at all, packing the lowest damage of any hero primary by far, but it makes up for this with its stun feature. The stun has a cooldown of only 4 seconds, making it the most spammable stun ability in the entire game. Due to the Shock Prod being extremely quick to use out of a roll, you can roll through a blocking Saber hero and stun them from the other side before they can react. This lets BB-9E's team tear them apart with ease. In objective game modes specifically, your main goal upon spawning is figuring out where you can be of most use. A good rule of thumb is, if the people you're running with have around 600 health total or more, you're in the right place. You can use your teammates as a distraction in a big fight to sneak behind enemy lines undetected, or force the enemy to deal with you and get gunned down by your team trying. Outside of combat, BB-9E should make sure his team is in good shape. Hug injured villains until they're ready for another round, and boost as many cooldowns as you can with Charge Up. If you're short on time and the objective is more important than your team, try barreling towards it in a near straight line using smoke and dodges. A BB-9E on the run is hard to hit and easy to lose track of, which are qualities that usually get you to your destination alone. Of course, every competitive trick needs a cool nickname, so we'll call this tactic Rushing Ball. While on the defense side, you could also use this on the objective itself to stall for time. Shock Spin is a bit of a nuke move. Pushing back enemies and disabling blasters make for great defensive traits, but they can also be used aggressively to bowl over a command post. However, don't treat it like BB-8's cable spin. 30 damage per second is laughable and you'll need your team to finish the job. A final note is that BB-9E is practically helpless against heroes and vehicles in a one-on-one, and you should avoid engaging them without the company of other units. In hero modes, specifically, you should always stick to at least one of your teammates and avoid engaging heroes on your own if you can help it. A good rule of thumb is to only harass the enemy team if there's an easy way for you to escape afterwards. Some fights happen entirely on the rooftops, which is where BB-9E's lack of a super jump or blaster really starts to bite. In this situation, the only thing you can really do is sit back and enjoy the show.
Try again, Laser Brain.
When you do get into a fight, you'll likely be faced with BB-9E's lack of a block. Thankfully, Shockrod's stun feature can still offer a way to keep Saber heroes at bay. Prod blocking. You can pull out the Shockrod preemptively and wait for your opponent to walk or lower their block into it, interrupting swings and force abilities. It's not unlikely that you still trade blows by doing this, but it's the closest thing BB-9E has to a reliable defensive option and catches many players off guard. Once you and an opponent are face to face, it's best to repeatedly roll around and through their attacks while slowly chipping away at their health. Be patient, as it can take BB-9E over 10 seconds to deplete some heroes' health bars. Don't feel bad if you struggle to win 1v1s. That's part of the definitive BB-9E experience at this point. Don't rely on bunny hopping too much either. Against lightsaber users in particular, you'll usually put in more effort for less. If you're on the run and need to shake a lightsaber hero, your best shot is to prod block them, then push them away with shock spin. If you need to go back the way they came, prod them, get behind them and spin them the other way to clear the path. I like to call this trick a spin escape. As for good matchups, BB-9E honestly has none. In a one-on-one, BB-9E objectively loses against every single hero in the game, and the only thing that will save you in such a situation is being more skilled than your opponent. You can offer some utility in a 2-on-2 though. With your shock prod interrupting blocks and a lot of abilities, the downsides of swing spamming can become even more obscure. If you see a BB-8 using cable spin, you can dash in and shock him to stop his spin. Just don't be too early with this, as if cable spin is interrupted too early, it won't go on cooldown and BB-8 can just use it again. This also applies to you while using shock spin, but you already have for that. For Hero Showdown, the only villain I could suggest pairing BB-9E with is Vader in round 1. This is a fairly decent defensive pair with high stall potential and lets you conserve other villains such as Kylo or Grievous for later. Lastly, for the tier list fanatics in the crowd, here's my look on BB-9E's viability and why. I've ranked him separately for objective and hero modes as he performs significantly better in the former. While being with a BB-9E, don't underestimate how much mileage you can get out of sticking with him. While he lacks firepower, he can provide a solid pillar to support yours, boosting your team's survivability and battle point income. In objective modes, specifically, a skilled BB-9E is an incredibly valuable asset for storming objectives. He offers on-the-spot healing for wounded villains early on in the match, cooldown boosts for big damage dealers like the Assault and Sith Troopers, and it refreshes the heavy sentry so they can keep laying waste to the objective. In hero modes, specifically, make as much use of BB-9E's healing as you possibly can. Don't jump on top of rooftops too high for BB-9E to get onto, as you're effectively down an entire man while you're up there. Instead, force the enemy to fight you on the ground, allowing BB-9E to work his magic and you to extend your kill streaks. While fighting against a BB-9E, it's best not to worry about him too much until he shows his face. BB-9E is a manageable nuisance that rarely takes exploitable risks, but he'll need to take those risks at some point if he wants to get any value out of being alive. If you're in a team fight and know for a fact there's a BB-9E out there, you can count on him being close by. Rooting him out with scanners, such as Finn's undercover team, BB-8's resistance backing, and the assault trooper's scan dart, even by accident, will give you a major advantage when you inevitably have to deal with him. In objective modes, specifically, try to outnumber BB-9E at all times. The more you force him to hide behind his team, the more you can take aim at them uninterrupted. If he tries to go on the offensive, treat him like an injured lightsaber villain. If he goes for the objective, immediately root him out with explosives or scare him out with something that costs battle points before he makes too much progress. In hero modes, specifically, Saber heroes can completely separate BB-9E from his team for free by staying on the rooftops, effectively letting them fight a 4v3 match. While Blaster heroes don't have this luxury, they can tear at BB-9E's health bar from a distance where he can't do anything back. Regardless of what hero you're playing, BB-9E is fairly easy to beat one-on-one. Take a deep breath, put your pride aside, accept that you're going to get stunned at least once, then deal with him. Try not to get tilted when you're face to face. That's the only way for him to get you in a corner. Once he's without his shock spin, there's little he can do besides stalling his demise. Finally, the star cards. I'll be going through them without a script. Forward construction. Easily BB-9E's best card. It's not even a competition, just this thing is amazing. Anything that increases your health regen or max health is always going to be good. BB-9E really needs more of it, because his stats just aren't that good and he can't really make up for this with health and elimination because he doesn't get that many eliminations. Every single issue BB-9E has is made more manageable with this card, and then there's never a bad time to equip it. Even if you're completely new to BB-9E, add one skill point to your name, spend it on this, 25 more is still 25 more. It's such a good card. At any point, just equip it and never look back. I haven't. Party exhaust is just kinda there. You don't really use smokescreen for the actual smoke clouds. You use it because you want to know where someone is before they know where you are. It's a really big advantage, and honestly smokescreen's probably the best scanning ability in the entire game. So BB-9E really relies on it to get the drop on people. The actual smoke is just not that good though. It stops lightsaber users from hitting you sometimes, because it really isn't that reliable. And this makes it slightly less unreliable, but it doesn't make it consistent. I've noticed that I get hit with lightsabers less when I have this card equipped, but not to such an extent that I could really say you should use it in objective game modes. I was gonna not recommend this card, but then I remembered BB-9E doesn't have anything better. So yeah, in hero game modes use it, in objective game modes don't. ICU is more of a quality of life card than an actual I win the game because I have this card. It's not great, but it's in some areas just nice to have. It makes smokescreen just more consistent, and if you cancel it early and someone walks into your radius last second, yeah, get a longer view of them. Not really a card that you have to necessarily use always, but it's just nice to have every once in a while. Yeah, sure. In objective game modes in particular, I guess there's never a bad time to be better at spotting things. It's an okay card, I suppose. Spin Me Around is a completely useless card that makes your shock spin worse, and then also increases the cooldown. I'm not really sure why you'd use this. There is a very valid use specifically in hero game modes, specifically on maps such as Camino, where you use this to push people off the edge. But while it is a valid use on those maps specifically, and I would really recommend you use it on those maps, that's kind of it. There's really no other good place to use this. Hero game modes on really specific maps, yeah, sure, go for it, but that's kind of it. Cassell, Kashyyyk, Camino, 3Ks, and if it's not one of them, and it's not a hero game mode, just don't ever use it. Linked Systems is, in objective game modes, an almost full reconstruction to your card. It is really good for one reason, and that's that you can increase the damage from your shock prod from 24 to 25. This means when you attack an assault trooper or a heavy trooper, usually after a few shocks they're going to be on extremely low health, and you're usually going to get your kill stolen from you by that time. Anything that helps you take them out quicker in less hits will not only help you go for kills more, but it will help you not get kill stolen, which means you get your regen on quicker, which means you get your health on elimination more often. It helps you stay alive more, and it helps you deal more damage for your team. It's a really useful all-around good card, but in objective game modes, because you have to stay alive for a long amount of time if you really want to get good use out of it. 4 stunts isn't that much, and then you get the basic value out of it. You don't really need to go for 6 or even 8, but you need to stay alive and be a decently good BB-9E to get any value out of it. In hero game modes, yeah, just don't even equip it. Enemies have so much health and you take so much damage so quickly, it's not gonna make a difference. Even Rey, who deals the least damage out of every lightsaber user in the game, will deal more damage with one swing from the front than you will be able to do in an entire second. In objective game modes though, yeah, sure, it's a good card. Faster Faster is a card that I've heard be praised very highly in the past, and I can understand why. I mean, come on, cable spin, but it deals double damage if you hit multiple enemies, which is basically always. That's insane, but this is not cable spin, this is shock spin. It deals 30 damage per second, that's laughable. 2 times 0 is still 0. 60 damage per second is absolutely nothing. It's absolutely nothing. That's absolutely miserable. You need to take into account that Dooku is gonna deal well over 400 in a second, and you're competing with him for a hero slot. It's just not good. It just deals so little damage even with this card equipped. It's just not good. Just don't use it. The spin feature of shock spin is easily its weakest part. Just go for the initial burst and deal 90 damage and just cancel it. It's a terrible card and I just don't recommend using it ever. In co-op it can sometimes be good, question mark, because it's not gonna have the area cleaning abilities of a Palpatine, but maybe if you've already got a Palpatine and he's goofing off, you can technically... No, I'm just pulling for gimmicks here. Not a good card, don't use. Supercharged is not a bad card, but it isn't a great card. It increases the radius of charge up, which is nice to have. It'll let you boost 1 or 2 more people every once in a while, but it doesn't make charge up necessarily better, if that makes any sense. It doesn't make your team spam abilities more efficiently, it doesn't make their sentry guns shoot harder. It just makes you slightly more likely to hit more people with it. And that's fine and all, but it's just not that great. I think a better version of this card already exists, and I would not recommend using this card without using that other card. Might as well just get to it now. Swift Power, a gateway to ability spam you've never thought possible before. Having 5 less cooldown on every use of charge up is going to be good, because that means all of your teammates have 5 less cooldown time on all of their abilities too. Anything that lets you ability spam more in this game is going to be good. That's why recharge command is a good ability on officer. But this is just, it's just good. The more you can cut off time from your team's cooldowns, the more your team will be able to spam them, and the more damage you'll be able to deal indirectly. Just a really good card. You could use it in combination with Supercharge to go for an all-out support build with full reconstruction to keep you alive for longer. But even if you're not running an all-out support build, I could absolutely recommend this. Offensive BB-9E, as gimmicky of a strategy as that might be, can actually also benefit from this card because you're going to be dealing more damage indirectly by buffing your teammates. Good card, yeah. Use it. Potent Bacta. Oh boy, let me tell you a tall tale. On Battlefront 2's launch, Maul was a completely different character. He had infinite stamina, but he couldn't block. He was all-out offense. But then the Battlefront 2 team realized, you know what, that's not really a good gimmick at all, because blocking is really important. So they changed it, they gave him a blocking animation, and they gave him a maximum amount of stamina. Now, before they made that change, he already had this card, and it gave him more stamina. But at the time he had infinite stamina. So ultimately it just didn't do anything. It was a completely pointless card that they just threw in haphazardly and didn't bother to check if it actually changed anything. It was just not a good card. It didn't matter at all that it was there, because you would be playing the exact same character if you had it equipped. So yeah, it's one of the worst star cards in the entire game, period. Fortunately, it's actually good now, because, you know, Maul's a different character. He's got a lot of reworking under his belt. Nowadays, it's good. Phasma, when she came out, her staff strikes were not her melee. She had her own melee, and then also the staff strikes, which were an ability, and she had to use 3 of them consecutively to deal bonus damage with the third. And then it went on cooldown, and it was just not good, because it had a massive blind spot. And that blind spot just covered what felt like the whole ability. You never hit people with it. It was incredibly slow, basically set you up for a free kill because it took so long to finish. It was really hard to hit things with it. It didn't one-shot troopers. You just never got kills with it. Never. So you wouldn't use it. You would treat Phasma as if she only had 2 abilities, because she basically did. And in that time, there was this card that would reduce all of her cooldowns permanently for every single kill you got with her staff, if I do remember correctly. You would not use this card because you wouldn't use staff strikes. Even going for the risk of trying to get kills with staff strike, it just wasn't worth it, because staff strikes isn't a good card. Not a good ability. It just wasn't good at all, and no one used it. It wasn't technically useless, because in the insane situation where you actually get multiple kills with staff strikes, it could be good, but it never happened, which is why it's one of the worst cards in the game. Nowadays, staff strikes is good, so it's fine now, but back in the day it was really bad. But you know why I'm telling you this story? You know why I'm telling you the story about Maul at launch? Because neither of those 2 completely useless cards even come close to how bad Potent Bacta is. This is the worst card in Battlefront 2 history, and I'm really, really confident in saying that. I have never used it, I will never use it, and honestly making this video to test it out more has only made my doubts about it worse. It increases the radius from 7 to 9.5, which is basically nothing. That is very small, and I would honestly not recommend you use this card. But then for some reason, someone on the Battlefront 2 team thought that that was too overpowered, and they increased the heal cooldown as well. Meaning, instead of healing someone for free health every 1.8 seconds, you heal them for free every 3.8. You are healing people for less than half the amount you're usually doing for a minor increase in the radius. You're not an equally bad character if you have this equipped. You take one of the only things BB-9E has going for him, which is that he's the only villain in the game that can heal, and you make it worse. One of the only things BB-9E can do, and you've made it worse. That's like making faster not do the initial burst that deals 90 damage. It's just the spin part, no discharge or anything. It's just a major downside for a card that doesn't do anything. Trust here. I would not even put this on a tier list if I was making one. This is an actual joke card. My usual loadout will almost always have full reconstruction and swift power, with the third card depending on the situation. In objective game modes I like to run linked systems to deal with infantry better, while in hero modes I usually run hardy exhaust or ICU. I make exceptions for certain HPV maps like Camino and Cassell, where I'll run spin me round to knock people off ledges. If you hate switching your loadout around all the time, full reconstruction, swift power and either ICU or supercharge will do fine. When I feel particularly overconfident, I may also run full reconstruction, hardy exhaust and spin me around to hunt lightsabers. So, that concludes the BB-9E guide. My definitive BB-9E guide, I dare even say. If I said anything that was incorrect in this video, there's a pinned comment, you can reply under there. If you want more guides like this, do not subscribe, I am not going to make more of them. I could change my mind on making a BB-8 guide, if there's anyone out there that would like to see one. I could pick it up by next year or something. Just leave a comment if you do. Almost all of the information in this video was taken from my own research in split screen arcade on the PlayStation 4 version of Battlefront 2. I did come to a lot of conclusions and did learn a lot of stuff back in the day in the comment section of Sammy Boy's old BB-9E guide, and I did take a few notes from the Battlefront 2 wiki, which is a bit bare bones and in some areas incomplete. I did, to the best of my ability, test everything I took note of though. If I somehow still missed anything, again, there's a pinned comment, you can reply to that. That being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.